Listen to the music, listen to my body. It's telling you something you should know.
I remember when
Yes, I feel it in
my sister first told her best friend at school what was going on. We just went to the school to pick my sister up, just like a regular day, and she wasn't there. And I remember my father going off. He was cussing the principal out, and they couldn't basically control him because he wanted his daughter. They called the police on him, and he had to be escorted out the building. My mom was in tears, and me and my brother, we didn't know what was going on. And the only thing I remember thinking in the back of my head is, why not us? And when we went home, the whole ride home, my father was cussing my mom out. He had punched her in the face, and she was just crying. And I know my father probably was panicking because no one had ever talked. No one ever said a word. So I'm sure he was thinking the floodgates was about to open. I had never seen that type of fear in my father before. Nothing ever scared him, but I saw fear in my father that day. He was still trying to show strength to keep us all in check, telling us we better, if someone comes to the school the next day, we better not say nothing. That was the conversation on the way home. So me and my brother, we're still just, looking at each other, and I'm thinking please God rescue us. And when we got home, it was about 5 o'clock in the afternoon, and it was a knock at the door. It was this white guy. I still remember his name. His name was Dan. And he had 2 police officers with him. And he said, "We're from Hamilton County Children and Youth, and we're here to take Samira and Suleiman." My mom broke down. She immediately broke down in tears. And so my dad was trying not to let them in, and the police officers had to put him in handcuffs. So my mom was begging them, please, not to take us. And me and my brother went upstairs to gather some stuff. And as soon as we got to the top of the steps, we gave each other the biggest hug. You would never imagine. We hugged each other. It felt like for an eternity because we knew we were saved. My father's, still going off, and we leave. And in that moment, I thought about my mom, because I'm like, wait a minute, it's still one more person here. I'm like, what about my mom? And they're like, we're only here to get you guys. I grabbed my mom's arm, and I'm trying to take her with me. And they're like, no, that was a decision she would have had to make on her own to leave him. So I immediately started crying. I didn't even want to go anymore because I didn't want to go without my mother. And I had to be physically pulled from my mother's arms at that point when I realized that she was not going with me. The first place they took me and my brother was to this place called the Chandler Shelter. And it's a temporary housing spot for foster children before they get placed into foster homes. I kind of looked at it like a pound because there's just a bunch of little kids there, and you just had to be picked. So if they didn't pick you, they didn't pick you. It was pretty scary in there. There was just all these new faces. We never really had friends. We weren't allowed to interact with people like that. We did, go to school and stuff, but we never had friends that come home and sleep over. We didn't get to go over their houses. It was never that type of contact with people. So now I'm able to interact and play and, kind of be a child, but I didn't really know how to be a child. So I'm just really quiet, and I got picked on a lot. The first night I was there, I had a problem with urinating myself, especially when I was afraid. So I was embarrassed because I peed myself the first night I was there. I would wake up and terrifying nightmares, screaming for my mom. And I remember it was a little bathroom connected off to the room, and I would go in that bathroom just embarrassed because I had peed myself, and the kids would be making fun of me. And I tried to end my life for the first time at 9 years old. A lot of the kids would pick on me, bully me, because of my size, because of the way I wore my hair, in a short afro, and I was just really chubby. The kids would throw food at me, make fun of me. I was just always crying, and I didn't know how to fight. I was never a fighter, so I just really just took it. It would be times where like my mom's visits were always supervised, so he could never get close enough. But she would tell us, like she would whisper in my ear something, your dad's, in the car. He told me to tell you that he loves you, or, your dad sends this, and it might be like a $20 bill or a $100 bill or something like that. And to me, like, I was happy, and I'd be like, tell him I love him and stuff like that. But, I always got to say, as an adult, I see it as you're trying to pay me for my silence, like, it was always a selfish intent with my father. He never, not once, cared about us even being in foster care. I remember my mom told me that he said for her to just leave us all in foster care and for them to start over somewhere else. And she wouldn't do it. And that's the day he had broke her jaw. And at the Chandler shelter, I had like staff members that kind of clung on to me. One of my favorite, her name was Miss Mabel. She had this really cool key ring. Like, it had probably like 2 keys on it, but her keychain was like this big because she had like all these cool little gadgets on it. So I remember playing with it like all the time, and she would talk to me and kind of comfort me when like all the kids was making fun of me, making me cry and stuff all the time. She kind of took like a motherly role to me. Like I even feared my father inside the shelter. Like, was he gonna come get us from there? What was going on? And then about a week into being at the shelter, my brother got placed with the family. He went to a lady named Miss Gibbs. So then I was really alone. I didn't have my best friend. I didn't have my brother. And it took about maybe a month for me to get placed. Within that month, I tried to run away from the shelter a couple different times. Whenever I would try to run away, they would physically restrain me. And I'm 9 years old at the time, and I'm a big girl for my age, and it's like they never really understood that. They treated me like an adult all the time, and I'm 9. Like they're slamming me to the ground, shooting me with needles because they would give me medication to make me calm down. So they would shoot me with these drugs. They would strap me down to these beds with these leather buckles. I've even been muzzled before because I was a spitter. I used to spit and try to bite people. Just anything to try to get away. Internally, it just was making me angry because I'm thinking, I just want to go home. I just want my mother. Like, how are you keeping me somewhere I don't want to be? They're not telling me where my brother went. They're not telling me where my mother was. Nobody's answering my questions. So it was either death or get out of here. They treated me like an animal. And that was the beginning of my life where I started to build hatred for people. My heart started to become cold, and I just like became an angry person. My first home was with this family called the Stampers. The father was a professed minister, supposedly. They had been taking foster care children in their whole lives. His wife was a stay-at-home mom. She was really sweet to me. Their daughter, she used to take me to the movies, bowling and stuff like that. So I got to experience those type of things. This was when like I really kind of got to be a child. The first time I tried to run away is because the foster dad, he tried to touch me. In the bathroom that was attached to my room in the house that I was in with them, there was a window that went outside to the back porch. So in the mornings when I would go in the bathroom and wash up for school and stuff, I was in the mirror just being a typical kid, like I'm dancing, playing with my little boobies because I was starting to grow boobs, just being a kid, doing my hair and stuff. And I felt like somebody was watching me. And I looked to the side And he was watching me the entire time. Like, and I was buck naked. And he had this grin on his face, like he saw that I saw him. And he had this grin on his face that shook me to the core. Like, I swear I turned white as a ghost. And then I immediately felt uncomfortable in that home. And so I'm plotting how I'm gonna get away from here. And one morning he took me to school, and I had a skirt on, and I went to get out the car. He reached over me and he pulled the door and grabbed and shut the door so I couldn't get out the car. And then he reaches over and takes his hand and rubs it up my leg, up my thigh, and up to my underwear, and pulls my underwear to the side and starts touching my private area. So I'm frozen. I don't know what to do. And he's just smiling, telling me to relax. And I'm telling him no. And somehow I just jumped out the car and I went into the school building. I never went to class. I immediately waited at the door for him to leave. As soon as I saw him leave, I ran out the school building. I ran all the way down to a gas station and I called my mom. She told me to wait there, that her and my dad was gonna come pick me up. They did end up charging my father with sex crimes. He lost his contract with the Hamilton County school systems because he was teaching jazz to the school kids for like a music course. So he professionally was ruined. You know, like I remember seeing the article as a little girl and said jazz man accused of sex abuse. And I remember my half siblings that I had never met before. They had flew them down from Pennsylvania. They all testified at his hearing. So they really put a nail in his coffin. During that whole like court case and stuff like that, I was pretty much the only one that wasn't really talking. My father still had a hold over me. I had this fear of talking. We were always told what goes on in our house stays in the house. You don't talk about family business. And that was embedded in my head because it got beat into you that you don't tell what goes on in your household. So I wasn't doing any talking. And I feel like that was another reason why they just kind of threw me away in the system, because I wasn't useful to them. I also called my caseworker. Her name was Dale Rooks. My mom got there first, so I was with my mom. And of course, she called them. She had to turn me over. My dad was with her, and of course he was like drilling me about other stuff. You know, he's trying to figure out what they're talking about as far as the case and all that stuff. I wasn't even worried about any of that. Like, I'm telling my mom what this guy just did to me, and I was never trying to go back there. So when Miss Rooks comes to meet my mom, and I told Miss Rooks what he did, she took me right back to that foster home. They didn't do anything. She made it like I was lying because he was a pastor. And that was the first moment in my life that I realized, like, I had no voice. I learned to keep stuff in from that day forward and not tell people things because nothing would happen. I was there probably about a week because I ran away. I tried to run away.
A week?
Because I just was afraid. You know, like, I didn't want to be around him. He made me uncomfortable. And then just the environment was tense. I don't know if it caused like a conflict in their relationship. I remember them fighting. And then I took my opportunity to run when I went to school one day. I ran away. And Miss Rooks, my caseworker, she didn't listen to me. I feel like I was just thrown away into the system for whatever amount of money that they got from me. And they didn't care to rehabilitate me. They didn't care to give me any type of real treatment. It was just, here, you know, you're off there. When I ran away, Miss Rooks kept telling me that she basically embedded in my head that I was a problem. She kept saying that you're gonna be a problem for me, and she knew what to do with me. And I went back to the Chambliss shelter because that's where they always placed you for temporary housing whenever they're looking for a new foster home for you. So at the Chandler shelter, I tried to run away from there a couple more times. And they were just pretty much frustrated with me running away all the time. But they're not understanding I am a child. I'm thinking like a 9-year-old. I'm thinking like a 10-year-old. I just want my mom. I just wanted to go home to my mother. They act like they didn't understand that at all. I was just a pain in their side, a thorn in their side, and they wanted to get rid of me. So to prevent me or stop me from running away, they would ship me off further. So their thinking would be, if we ship her off an hour away from here, she won't know anybody, and we'll stick her in the woods somewhere at some institution, and they can deal with her. I was in 26 placements the entire 5 years I was in foster care. I had no home, I had no structure, no family, no love, just thrown from place to place, place to place. I was with white parents, I was with black parents. I got to see a little bit of everything. I experienced a lot of racism when I was in the foster homes with the white kids, being treated differently. I've been in homes where parents were just, foster parents were just there for a check. It was like 10 kids in the home, and we were all in bunk beds in one room. It was just a constant nightmare for me. And all this is doing is setting the stage for the hate in me, for the anger in me. And people might think it's weird, and they say what would make a person want to go back to that? But if that's all you know, that's what you're going to go back to. A person can beat you all day long, but that's the person that feeds you, that's the person that clothes you, that's the person that you're supposed to call mom and dad. So you have a love for them that's affinity regardless, no matter what they do to you. So that's kind of like how I was, I was programmed. And it's no matter what my father did, no matter how horrible they told me he was, they could show me 1,000 dolls and these are good touches, these are bad touches. In my mind, I was already programmed that those were beautiful things. This was a bond between a father and a daughter that was special, And the way he groomed us, he didn't do it in a forceful raping type of way. So that's what made it easier for me to accept the things that he was doing as normal. Miss Coleman, I was with her the longest, and I was mad that I had to leave her. I was with her probably for almost 2 years. That was the longest stability I had, and it crushed me when I had to leave her. She was around my dad's age, and she actually was a good friend of my father. I liked her because she was just funny. She was a really great mom. She cooked dinner every night, and she reminded me of my mother. She talked to me. She would tuck me in at night, make sure I was okay, and before I went to bed. Holidays, she went over and beyond. I never seen something so magical. It was like being at the North Pole for Christmas, and that was the best time of my life. And I thank God for her, because she showed me what a real family was. Thanksgiving, she cooked a big dinner. I got in trouble at school because I was getting older. She was one of the foster homes I went to when I was about 11, 12. So it was kind of that merge into going back home. My mom had got her own place, and she had separated from my father. He was still in the picture. And so when I kept getting into fights and stuff at school, and she took me up from that place and sent me to this place called Pine Breeze. I had to go there. So that was a facility on a state hospital ground. It was more like a mental type of place. But I'm still a child, I'm 11 and 12 in a place now with people that got real issues. My only issue is I wanted to go home. I was around adults too, older teenagers and adults. So I had adults showing me how to, telling me how to shoot drugs. They were trying to teach you a whole bunch of stuff in these different institutions. How to kill yourself the proper way. It's you want to help me, but you throw me somewhere where I'm around more dangerous people. So that just made me have to put on more of a tough exterior. I needed intense therapy, not drugs. And they wanted to control me with psych meds. Zoned out, like I would be sitting there, my drooling at the mouth, like tongue hanging out my mouth. The one medication, Haldol, that they gave me, they would give me that all the time, and I kept telling them that it was doing something to me. And to this day now, they have it on my record as an allergy, so they won't give me Haldol. But back in the day, they used to just shoot me up with the stuff and let me go through the side effects and didn't even care. Like my side effects from Haldol, my tongue would swell up really big, so it would be literally hanging out of my mouth like a dog, and I'd be drooling. And they're like, oh, it'll wear off, and I'm just like, what in the world is going on? And even the Haldol would do something to like my legs. Like it literally altered my walking to where I would walk like I had cerebral palsy. Then they just kept trying me on all these different medications, Miloril, Paxil, lithium, I think Demerol was one of them. Like hard drugs that they give real crazy people. And then nobody had even medically diagnosed me. You could have sat my mom in the room with me and all of my feelings would have went away. But this is what they did back then. They have all these different studies of how stuff like that should have been illegal and it did damage, to children back in those days. And it's like, as an adult now, they want to put me into this world, and then when situations happen, they want to act like there's no history there. Like y'all have all these studies saying that this was the wrong way to do it, but then like when the situation happens or like I black out, y'all don't understand it. Like this is who y'all made, like this is who y'all created. And it's the restraining, and you try to run away from those type of places, you're violently restrained, and you're locked in these seclusion rooms for 24 to 72 hours at a time. The only time they open that door is to give you breakfast, lunch, and dinner, or let you come out to use the bathroom. It's crazy because the isolation is how I taught myself to sing. I would be in there so long and the walls would echo, so it would make my voice sound beautiful, like a whole choir. And I would just play with my voice with different octaves. I would try to sound like different people. I'd be like, early in the morning, I put breakfast on your table, and I can't help but to wonder if you're talking about me, baby. Like I used to be in there just doing little crazy stuff like that with my voice. And I learned that I had range, and it would pass the time for me. And when I think about it now, and I say I'm covered by the Most High, like I'm covered by God in so many ways, because He brought me through that, and if it wasn't for Him giving me little things like that to occupy my time, I probably would have killed myself, because the walls were like, it was blood all on the walls from like people punching it and busting their knuckles or bamming their head up against the wall. Like they treated me like dirt. So I learned to like just take that time and really kind of find myself. I did a lot of thinking, and that's when like I came to the mind frame, like I'm not going to be bullied anymore. I'm not going to be this victim anymore. Anybody that bothers me, they're going to get Sam. They're going to get Big Sam. All the other, 9 through 12-year-olds my entire life have always been at least 100 pounds smaller than me. They've all been shorter than me. I've always been tall. I've always been chubby. I've always been darker, than everybody that I went to school with. I always had the nappy, coarse hair, so I was just a constant target to everybody else because I was different. And even though I was a sweet person, it's kind of like they made me into this monster because I had to learn to defend myself. I had to learn to protect myself, or I was always going to be this empty shell. I remember I got into a fight with this boy in one of the homes I was in. He was a white boy, and he kept calling me the N-word. And I just kept taking it for a little bit, you know, like I even let him, like he spit at me and everything. And I was just sitting there, but I could feel myself boiling, you know. And I had never gotten angry in my life before that moment. This was my first fight, like my first like blackout fight. I was about 10 or 11 in this home, and just frustrated about everything, you know, just all the different back and forth, different places, not knowing where my mom was, not knowing where my brother, my sister was. And so this boy, he's, you know, just keeps on agitating me, and I could feel this blood like boiling in me. I never felt that. And when he spit at me a second time, I just blacked out. And when I came to, it was blood everywhere. Like, I had bust his nose, and like they had grabbed me off of him, and they said that I was just like wailing in his face. And so it was just like all this blood coming down his face and stuff, and he was crying, and I was like shocked at myself because I didn't even know I had that in me. But it just, I was tired. I was fed up with everything. A little bit, it kind of felt like strength, you know, like I don't gotta take this. And I saw what strength gave me, you know, like it put people in their place. So that's what I began to, you know, rely on. If you mess with me, I'm going to react. But it got to a point where I thought I was a tough girl, and I put myself in situations that I couldn't get out of. And at 13 years old, I ended up being gang raped by 5 grown men. I skipped school. I was in the 8th grade. And I didn't go to school. And I ended up stranded on the other side of town at the mall. And I needed to get home. And to me, I'm just, you know, I'm a tough girl. I done skipped school. I'm bad. So like, you know, I had my starter jacket on, my khaki pants, and my Deion Sanders Nikes, and I'm just, you know, walking around the mall, and it was a group of guys, and they were telling me to come here. So I went over, you know, just still thinking I'm a tough girl. You know, what do they want with me? I go over there, and, you know, and they're, you know, making comments saying I'm beautiful and stuff. I had never had people talking to me like that before, so it was intriguing. You know, I'm conversating with them, and to get all this attention, you know, from these guys, I'm thinking that's cute. You know, like I'm the only girl, you know, I'm the baddest one here. They all want to talk to me. And so they're all like, what are you doing, you know, out here? And I'm like, you know, I'm at the mall, blah, 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 skip school. And I was like, I actually stuck. I need a ride home because I didn't have any money to get back home on the bus. And they're like, oh, we'll give you a ride. You can ride with us. So I'm like, okay, fine. And so I'm in the car with these guys, and then the one is saying that he has to get ready for work and he had to stop by his house. And so I'm sitting in the car, they all are getting out, and they're like, are you coming in? I'm like, I thought you was taking me home. He's like, oh, you can come in for a little bit, come in. You know, like we about to smoke a blunt and stuff like that. So I'm still like trying to act like I'm cool. I had never even smoked weed before. Nothing. I hadn't even taken a drink or anything. And so like I follow these people into this house, and I start to feel uncomfortable. The door that we went in was into a room automatically, so that had to be, I guess, his bedroom. It was a nice house, so I'm assuming now that it must have been one of their parents' house or something like that, but that back room was a bedroom. And so they're like, sit down, relax. They start smoking weed. They start blasting music. And now I'm like really uncomfortable because I feel like I'm surrounded by wolves. Like it's all these people and it's drugs, alcohol. So like now I'm starting to feel uncomfortable. They're trying to pass me the weed and stuff. But a part of me still wanted to show strength. Like even though I was afraid in my mind, I still wanted to act tough. I still wanted to show strength. Like I'm not afraid of any of y'all. But the guy, he pulls out a camera and he starts videotaping, and he pulls me by my arm to get up off of the bed. He's telling me to dance. And I'm like, I'm not a dancer. Like I play basketball and football and stuff. I'm like, I'm not a dancer. And he was like, come on. And I'm just like, no, like still trying to act tough. I'm like, no, I don't want to dance. Saying fall back and all of that stuff. Just trying to act like a tough girl. So as I'm talking, saying no, the other guys have their hands on me, removing my clothes. So like, he has my arm trying to twirl me around to make me dance with him, while two other people, one is undoing my zipper, pulling my pants down, and another person had their arm on my shirt, trying to pull my shirt up over my head. And I'm like trying to like laugh it off, like saying, y'all stop it. In my mind, I'm terrified. Because I'm like, I'm in this situation and I cannot get myself out now. And they're like, just relax. And so I'm trying to conversate with them to just try to humanize the situation. Because I didn't want to be attacked. Like, I didn't want to be killed or beat up or anything. So I'm trying to like, be a human to these people and have a conversation. So I'm like, I didn't even know their names. So I'm like, can you tell me your name? I was like, what's your name? And he was like, Mike. And I was like, what's your name? And he was like, Mike. And so they all repeatedly just kept saying Mike. And I just went black. Like, I'm sorry. They did things to me that you should never do to nobody. And I had to take it for hours. I broke that day. And they dropped me off back at my mom's house like I was a piece of trash. And I didn't even tell my mom because I was more afraid that I would get in trouble for skipping school than for telling her that I was just gang raped. And that just shows you the mentality of a child. Like I was just more scared that I would have got in trouble for skipping school. Like I didn't want her to know that. So I didn't tell nobody. And they got away with what they did to me. From that day forward, I was just promiscuous. Like, nobody was going to take nothing from me. You could have it. Like, I didn't even care. Like, if it's that important to you, if it's that important to my daddy, if y'all want me that much, like, I didn't even care no more. Like, you can have it. Like, you ain't taking nothing from me no more. And I gave it to whoever wanted it. Like, I never was going to go through that again, ever. Actually, after doing a lot of begging from Miss Coleman's, when I went to Pine Breeze, from Pine Breeze, they actually let me go to the foster home where my brother was at. And it didn't last. I was probably there maybe about 7 months. And it was okay. Like, I really loved being with my brother. She only got rid of me because me and my brother got into a fight. And she was like, I'm not having that. Which, it really hurt my heart because I feel like she could have forgave us for that one little fight. Brothers and sisters fight all the time. She don't know how bad she crushed me to have me go back to hell. Because I just went back to the chopping block and more bouncing. Because had she just got over that one little fight, I would have been there until my mom got us back, because I was with my best friend again. You know, like we were two peas in a pod again. We was walking to school together. We would go to the rec center after school every day and play basketball. Like, he would walk around there, he would bring me money and, you know, just check on me. So in foster care, I got to see my brother a whole lot more than I did my sister. The only time I didn't get to see my family at all was when they kept shipping me out, like further and further, I guess to really punish me or try to prevent me from running away. Went home at the age of 14 when my mom finally, it was no more visitation on the weekends. It was straight solid home. I really felt like I was a grown woman. You know, like at that point, my mom couldn't tell me what to do anymore. You know, I was pretty much in control of my own destiny. I didn't want to listen to anybody. And that's kind of when I went down the road of out of control teenager. And I started getting in trouble a lot. I was just very sexually active. And to my mom, you know, it's like, you done handed me back a monster. Like, what y'all do to my baby? You know, so like, I can understand her feelings now as an adult, how she was like, you were a terrible child. But it's like, no, Mom, you don't know what I went through. You know, I kind of blamed her, you know, for not rescuing me. So like, I had a lot of resentment towards my mom when I went home. And I just was out of control, you know, and she didn't know what to do with me. You know, it was kind of like a mirage, you know. I put on this face of toughness, but my father was the devil. So he was always going to be my biggest boogeyman. So no matter if I felt strong on the outside, like I always still had this deep fear of my father. So when I went home to my mom and to see that she was still like interacting with him, like wasn't completely done with him, that was unsettling to me. I felt like he was trying to get his foot back in the door. You know, he started staying the night a couple times, and we still weren't 18. Like, he wasn't still supposed to be around us. But it made me a strong person. So like, I think I'm my biggest fan. You know, like, I admire that about myself. And I want to be able to give that back, you know, and help other people that are going through similar situations.
I know it hurts, cause I've been treated like dirt since all my life. Men been trying to get up under my skirt, contemplating ending my life, not knowing that the answers to my questions lie within me. All I had to do was listen. Pay attention to this knowledge that I'm giving you. Spit this game that he prophesies for me to get to you. This is my testimony. On nights when I was cold and lonely, searching for love, consuming lust, my trust. Abused bottles closest to me. My worth is destined by the chosen one above me. My life was written long ago, so don't you judge me. My faith is all that kept me from a life of danger, so I try to hold on and maintain. If you get my life, I pay the price to sacrifice my daily strikes that plague my life on quiet nights. My body fights to stay in light. Though I try to make it right, I always seem to lose my sight. I'm focused on a greater flight. Lord, please help me. Like the worst, abused, abandoned, and cursed. The ones that claim to love you only hang around for the thirst. Wish I could have chosen my first, but I didn't. Now the pain is buried deep inside, and so I laid it down on this verse. I was racing through a war zone, trying to find my sanity. By the grace of God, I was dealing what they handed me. Look what things has landed me. Popos, they abandoned me. If I had lost my son, I swear to God, you see a side of me. Then I died eternally.
15 of these bags. When I tell you it was embarrassing, and like when he climbed in the bed and did that, like I remember how paralyzed I used to get in those moments, and how like I would just turn my head and tears would just go down my eye.